Nico Iamaliava has entered the transfer portal, and Iowa State needs to look in his direction. We're talking about it today on Locked On Cyclones.
You are Locked On Cyclones, your daily podcast on the Iowa State Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Shout out to you for being here every single day and making this your first watch or listen of the day. I appreciate it more than you know. Wherever you're watching or listening, be sure to subscribe so we can prove once and for all that it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. Speaking of the Cyclones, a team we like to talk about here on the Locked On Cyclones, we're going to talk a little bit about should the Cyclones target Nico Iamaleava, who just entered the transfer portal from Tennessee. Then in the second segment, we're going to talk a little bit about could that situation that happened at Tennessee, that whole thing that went down, could that happen at Iowa State here in the coming days, weeks, months, years, decades, whatever the case might be. And finally, we're going to round things out on this fine Monday day, I suppose. I'm not sure when you're listening, but whenever you are, I appreciate it. With some celebratory talk, the Iowa State softball team defeating Oklahoma State. Big kind of a lot of like record deal situations with that. So you're going to want to stick around for that. But before we get into all that, this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Now let's talk about it. Should Iowa State try to bring in Nico Iamaleava from Tennessee after he enters the transfer portal? No, there is no way, shape, or form that this makes sense for Iowa State. I can't. Yeah, no. The answer is no. But why are we even talking about it? Obviously, the departure of Iamaleava from Tennessee was huge news over the weekend, and there was a lot of conversation of, well, is he leaving? Is Tennessee moving on from him? All of that doesn't really matter. We just know he can't transfer within the SEC due to league policy. And then there was conversation of like, could he go to Colorado? That seems to be not an option. I'm not so much worried about where Nico is going after his departure from Tennessee. I just wanted to look at this and say, should Iowa State take a chance on a guy like this? Not necessarily that this one makes sense, because I believe the number that was being reported was Nico Iamaleava was asking for around that maybe $4.5 million range. That's a ton of money. I mean, I am not gonna lie, that is so much money. Can you imagine if you had $4 million? Like that would be wild. So does Iowa State have that money to pay Nico Iamaleava? Probably not. I don't know exactly how the budget looks, but even if they did, it doesn't matter because Rocco Becht is our starting guy. So this isn't to say like they need to pick up Nico Iamaleava, but the caliber of player, right? Some guy who's going to ask for $4 million, solid enough quarterback. I guess not solid enough to potentially get the money from Tennessee, but I'm sure he'll get paid somewhere. And it was already on the roster for, I don't know for sure, but I know it was, I'd see numbers around like that $2 million mark. So solid player. My point is, could Iowa State target players of that caliber and see a boost in the program? It feels like right now the kind of players that Iowa State has is that homegrown, kind of that 3-star under the radar type of player that is developed into a really solid player for the most part. Now, obviously, Iowa State coaches talk about like we're a developmental school and kind of take pride in kind of bringing guys in from Iowa or Nebraska or was like this kind of Midwestern area. Not that that's only the area they're recruiting in, but of course there is an element of like pride in that. And so I get that. I really do. If that's going to be your angle, that's your angle. And we'll talk more about this in the second segment as to why that could be a really strong angle to take. But if Iowa State wants to bounce off of that 11-win season that they had last year, that 10-win regular season, I feel like there's going to have to be some of these really high caliber players is really the word I want to use. But the difference is that some of these high caliber players just don't fit the Iowa State model. And those are the kinds of players I'm talking about, right? You've got like guys who are just absolute top of the line, like Jaden Higgins and Jalen Knoll, just an absolute weapon out at the wide receiver position in these two, like this example. Either one, but they worked really well together, and obviously Rocco throwing the ball to them. These guys were studs, okay? What about those absolute studs that just make a lot of noise? Okay, I'm not going to name any particular players here, but I am going to say, like, there are players that are just absurdly good. They are wildly talented at whatever sport it is, but in this case, let's talk football. But they also seem to bring a little bit of like an aura of just kind of drama with them, right? Like always kind of getting into something with the media, or there's like conversations of what's happening in the locker room or whatever. And so should Iowa State take a swing on a guy like that, this like high risk, but you could see really, really high payout on the field? I think the answer to that is no. But I would also like it if they did. Is that like, does that even make sense? I don't think it fits the culture at all. And right now, Iowa State's culture is like one of its strongest selling points, to be honest, other than maybe like the Campanile and how sweet that is. But it's really where they're kind of finding their niche in this whole tumultuous situation that is college football, where we're not really sure what anything means right now, especially with NIL and what are we looking at for this House versus NCAA settlement. And it's all a bunch of like just murky waters. And Iowa State has found that let's just stick to this. This is our culture. This is our developmental side, angle we're going to take. And they like it. And so if you bring in a guy like that, that goes almost directly against like everything that Iowa State's culture is. If you were able to kind of mold him into what would be a prototypical Iowa State player, that'd be great. But I just don't know. Some of those guys, it's not really how it works. And so you take the risk on a guy like that, and then maybe he's in and out in a year, or maybe he doesn't quite produce on the field, and it kind of tears the locker room apart from the inside. Now, these are all really negative ideas, but it's not like we've never seen this happen before, either on the collegiate or on the NFL level. And so should Iowa State do that? No, I don't think so. But I do think that Iowa State needs to start bringing in some real dogs to keep up with the success from last year. Like I said, that 10-win, 11-win season, it's going to be tough to keep that kind of momentum going, especially in the Big 12. That is kind of like everybody kind of attacks each other, obviously. But I mean, the top of the top can lose to like an Oklahoma State at the bottom, like we saw in basketball. Now, different sport, but obviously Kansas going on that run in the middle of the season last year, just totally ripping up everything that came into their way for about 4 weeks or whatever it was. Iowa State being one of those teams just added a ton of parity to the league. And so Big 12, tough place to play. Apparently it's not the SEC. Apparently it's not the Big 10, but it is a tough place to play. And so I think with the way that the roster is constructed, not this roster specifically, but the way the team goes about constructing the roster year to year, I don't think that lends itself to consistent 10, 11 win seasons, consistent Big 12 title aspirations, consistent college football playoff hopes and dreams. Well, I suppose they are hopes and dreams, but that's probably all they would stay as, right? They're kind of almost a pipe dream. It feels that way when you look at Iowa State's history in football. We just had this conversation on Friday of, are we a football, or is Iowa State a football or a basketball school? It's like, okay, well, the football side of things really has struggled. It really has. And you've got that angle. Okay, you have that angle, but what does that angle keep? Are we keeping the 2-3 star guys, the walk-ons? Because I'm all for it, right? Like, I love the walk-ons just as much, if not more than anybody else. But if you want to be a national title contender, if you want to be the Big 12 title contender, I feel like at some point we're going to have to maybe find a way to bring in some of this top level talent, because the developmental side is great. It really is. And I'm not saying there's anything against that, but we just haven't seen sustained success from that model. And the Nico Iamaliava, an example that probably it doesn't make any sense for Iowa State to bring him in. You're banking on Rocco Becht already. The money that he's asking for is really a lot. And that's the other side of it is, could Iowa State even manage to bring in a big name like this? Could they manage to pay him? Well, you'd probably see direct revenue implications of having a super high caliber player, of going to the Big 12 title 3 out of the last 6 years, or whatever this hypothetical scenario you find yourself in is. Then that revenue, you can see that boost. And with the whole new rev share deal, it's not going to look like it does now, right? It's not going to look like that. And we're going to talk about that more in a second. But Iowa State, I think, can handle that. Not the Nico, obviously, not that situation. This is actually a really good pivot point. So let's talk about it. Could Iowa State handle that? And will it happen to Iowa State in the future? We'll talk about it more coming up right after this. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery, and now I budget smarter and save more. And managing money with your partner is smoother than ever as well. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. So the Nico Iamaliava situation out in Tennessee, very, let's say, eye-opening for sure. And should Iowa State target Nico Iamaliava? No, I don't think that that's the case. But could a situation like that happen in Ames, Iowa? Maybe. Hear me out. You're going to want to stick around for this one because it's complicated. There are multiple layers to this. Think of it like not so much a yogurt parfait, more like an onion. Really what's happening here is a lot of these NIL collectives are trying to just dump this money into the school before we see implications from the NCAA versus House, or whatever the name of it is, settlement, right? So we could see basically the eradication of these collectives with this whole new rev share deal. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. I don't think anybody really does, but there is a potential chance of something like that happening. And so these collectives know, like, hey, if we can spend the money on these guys and get them in right now, let's do it. And that's why we're seeing these inflated numbers, especially on the basketball side of things. We're seeing backups in the millions. We're seeing bench players, not even role players, like end of bench guys, over $200,000, and obviously starters pulling in just like almost, it's not, but it's like kind of life altering money. Like you could be set with that kind of money. And so those numbers coming through the basketball side of things are trickling into football. And we've seen that directly with Mr. Iamaleava out in Knoxville. But the transfer portal is not open yet. Opens on Wednesday. Some of these football players are going to see that money on the basketball side of things and say, I want a piece of that pie. That sounds like a pretty tasty pie. Can I put some whipped cream on that too? Add a little bit on top of the deal I have right now. Can we make that happen? We're going to probably see some guys enter the portal literally just based on the fact that they know right now is the time to do it. Next year, when the rev share looks different, is there as much money out there? Is that what's good? I don't know what that looks like. Nobody knows right now. But there's a potential for really no collective involvement, and it's all rev share. And of the $20.5 million cap, or whatever it ends up being, football only gets maybe a really solid program like 75% of that. So you're looking at about $15 million you're going to spend on this whole roster. You're probably not going to spend $4 million on a guy. That leaves you $11 million left to build the rest of your roster. Now, maybe you do, for sure, but I imagine that would be a huge standout, as opposed to now when these collectives can just make that money and pay somebody. It is more possible now than it is any other time. And obviously these $4 million standout deals are going to make the news, make the headlines every time. But what about the guy who's getting paid $200,000 right now, or $100,000 right now, enters the portal and can get $400,000 somewhere else? Because these collectives they're acting under the assumption like, we need to get rid of this money or else the school is just not going to see it. So we got to move this money and bring in these players that are worth this money. So if a guy at school A is like, 150,000 is pretty solid. It is, but I'm going to test my name in the portal. If they're going to allow me to come back, I'm going to test my name. And they get an offer for 250,000. It's like, this doesn't double his money, but he gets an extra 100,000. Like, because these collectives are just trying to get rid of it. Like, yes, this could very well happen. So could this happen to Iowa State? Potentially. But the angle for Iowa State is, you peel back the onion another layer. The culture. We've talked about this in the first segment. The culture of Iowa State is so strong that Matt Campbell isn't even scared of spring games, which doesn't seem like we're going to potentially have one this year because it's just not in the best interest of the program. But what we heard him say was, look, I'm not scared of this because we've had guys getting recruited and they stuck around anyway. We've had this for years. The culture of Iowa State is very strong. And we've heard multiple transfers talk about the culture, multiple players, current players, former players talk about the culture. It's prominent. It's a real deal thing here. And so I wonder if it's actually going to affect Iowa State that much, right? Like if Rocco enters, like if he enters the portal, he'd probably make a lot of money. I think that's, I think we can all agree on that. However, we also kind of saw this at the end of the season. So we know that Rocco is like kind of locked in, right? We know that at least where his mind is at, it's in Ames. But I wonder about like the smaller, role players. Maybe we see some there, maybe we do. But I think that especially what we've heard from the spring training, the spring, football practice, the 15 practices, we're hearing really solid things. Okay, I just saw Abu runs for a touchdown, so that was cool. Brahmer and his touchdown catch, the one-handed grab, was awesome. It seems like the culture right now, everyone is like first in, last out type of guy, but it's like the whole team, right? And you've got everyone bought in, and at the football school meetings on time every day. I'm not too worried about the transfer portal affecting Iowa State athletics come Wednesday. Whenever I think it's like the 16th to the 25th or whatever it is, about 10 days in there. I don't think that that's going to happen to Iowa State. I don't think we're going to see Rocco ask Iowa State for $10 million and then leave when he doesn't get it. I don't think we're going to see Chase Soul or Xavier Townsend say, all right, well, yeah, I do like what we've got here. And this spring has been solid, but I think I could make, probably double this, somewhere else. So I'm going to hit the portal. I don't think that that's what's going to happen because Iowa State's culture is so strong. And the other side of this is really the only year that this is going to go this way. Like I said, it's the collectives right now. So when we see this rev share thing go into effect, whatever it looks like, because nobody really knows right now, we're likely going to see a lot more tame numbers. And there will be still movement, of course. But I do think that that's kind of the guardrail that's going to help keep this under control moving forward, not only, next year, but into the next couple decades. And I think Iowa State can thrive under that model. I think that the percentage will probably look more like a basketball percentage-based split for Iowa State in comparison to like maybe an Alabama. Well, Alabama's pretty good at basketball too, but like Georgia, right? Georgia's probably going to be a very strongly football lenient rev share percentage versus Iowa State that might be closer to like almost 50-40, right? Something closer to that where of the 20.5 million, you don't have 18 million to spend or 17 million to spend, whatever the percentage that those big schools go with, big football schools. You're going to spend some of that money on basketball, but you also don't have the immediately large disparity between the collectives. Like Iowa State collective, all right, well, I don't have any official numbers, but like let's say Iowa State's like, all right, we can give you a $5 bill. And then Georgia's like, yeah, here's $30 million. Like that's kind of what's happening a little bit right now. I don't think Iowa State will have to deal with that in the future. And I also think that that's going to give them some leverage when we want to pick up those big players, like I mentioned in the first segment. You don't have the enormous number difference that you have to fight through. There will be a difference, and you got to pitch to the guy like, you're going to probably take a little bit of a pay cut here. But look at what you're coming into. The way that this system is built, look at the Iowa State success in the NFL draft. Look at the Iowa State success over the last few years. Look at the Iowa State developmental system. Like all of that, look at the culture. That's where you're going to have the angle. And so that's exciting. That really is very exciting. Speaking of exciting, Iowa State softball, lighten it up right now. We're going to talk about that coming up right after this. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trademaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trademaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. We've been locked in on football here at Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. But big news from Iowa State softball over the weekend. This is awesome. Iowa State gets the series upset over number 18 Oklahoma State. 2 wins out of 3 games. It's a Cyclone State, baby. Iowa State just took over Oklahoma, I'm pretty sure, actually. I think that's how that works. Iowa State won the first game 5-4, lost the second 10-1, and won the third 8-4. So technically lost the overall point differential there. I can already see the Sooners fans in my comments down below. But guess what? You could lose 1,000,000-0 in one game and win the other 2 by 1, and you still won more games. Like that's the math of the situation there. So very exciting win for Iowa State softball, a team that certainly isn't making a ton of noise at 9-6 in the Big 12 and 20-18 overall on the year. Not necessarily looking right now at this moment. Yes, a lot of games in softball, so I'm not too worried right now. But probably not your odds-on favorite to win it all for this softball team. But definitely some big swings, some big hits. Iowa State, I thought, had the better unis as well. We've had the uniform conversation from time to time here. But no hate for Oklahoma on their unis. I just think in comparison, Iowa State was slightly better there. Right now, with today's win, on the over the weekend, Iowa State's win surpasses the school record of 8 for most conference wins in a season. So that's also very exciting, moving to 9. This softball team could be the one. This could be the team to absolutely just break every record. And that's actually a realistic, who knows, I mean, we don't know exactly what's going to happen yet. I know that for sure. Just looking at kind of the rest of this here, a lot of games left, which is exciting. You could totally blow that conference win record out of the water. And I believe that's tomorrow. Then they'll play Iowa in Ames. So maybe we could take over that game as well as far as the Cyhawk series. Of course, we already know it's a Cyclone State. You hit subscribe to help prove that. We've seen success throughout the entire year of Iowa State versus Iowa. And they'll get it done on, what would that be, a Tuesday, I believe. And then obviously they'll play them later in the year again as well. But this is super exciting. I can't believe they broke that record of most conference wins in a season this early, really. As I mentioned, of course, not necessarily jumping off the stat sheet with super amounts of success, but that's really good. I think 9 wins really. I'm surprised that that's the record, but they broke it this early. Like this is a legit team. Looking at some of the box scores here, your RBI leader, Miss Trice, Serenetti Trice, second baseman with 3. Those were her hits. Carly Ford led it with 3 RBIs. Just a really solid performance all around. I'm not a big softball. I'm just going to be completely candid with you guys. This is a little bit of uncharted territory for me, but maybe we'll bring on there are some Iowa State softball connections that we could bring on and talk a little bit about this team, because there is no baseball, unfortunately, at Iowa State, but softball arguably harder. Let me know. What do you think? Is Iowa State harder, or is softball or baseball harder? Because it's a smaller ball, but it's from further away, versus softball. It's bigger, but it's from closer, and you don't have as much time to react. I'm not getting into that conversation today, but shout out to the Iowa State softball team for getting this huge win. Actually, huge win, series win, especially over Oklahoma State. I believe it's the first ranked series win for Iowa State. Obviously, I think it was number 16 was what it was, or number 18. I don't have it up in front of me right now. Doesn't matter. Iowa State won. And so number 18. I mean, top 25 win right there. Top 20 win. Top 18 win for Iowa State. Could be big things coming down the pipe for sure. Big things coming down the pipe for this show as well. If you're hitting subscribe down below, proving it's a Cyclone State. Until next time, Cyclone fans. Sayonara.